two, three. One, two, three. Let's go.
Hi there, and welcome back to Culture in Action presented by Whistle. I am Alexa Dobler, your host, and today we have an awesome guest, Sarah Dwyer-Schick. She and I are going to be talking about accessibility. We are going to be talking a bit about getting more women at the decision-making tables in sports, and we are going to also talk about normalizing the conversation around needs and experiences of young women and girls in sport. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Sarah.
Sarah Dwyer-Schick is the founder of the Sports Bra Project. This is an amazing nonprofit organization that provides new sports bras to programs and athletes in order to make sport more accessible for young women. Aside from that, Sarah is also an accomplished coach. She's coached in the collegiate realm for 15 years. She has been the director of coaches for many organizations. We are so happy to be able to talk with her about her expertise both in accessibility and coaching. Well, hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have a good conversation, and
Yeah,
it's a good way to start a Friday morning.
Yeah. So let's get into it a little bit. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and your background and kind of how you came to be where you are today, and then we'll get into more specifics and things like that next.
Sounds good. I guess first off, I'm a Title IX baby, and I grew up playing any sport that they would let me to play, which wasn't always all of them, unfortunately.
Right.
I think I would have been a great hockey player, but not an option in the 70s, at least where I lived. And so, after playing, every season, I was pretty much soccer was the one that stuck. So I played through high school and college, played at Smith College and the University of Denver, and then got into coaching.
Yeah.
And wanted to coach college. So started my first coaching job out of college was at University of Northern Colorado, and did the coaching climb for a while. I spent about 15 years as a header assistant at all three of the NCAA divisions, focusing on goalkeeper coaching. Worked with the junior college men's team, which has been amazing, most recently anyway. And and then obviously focusing on the youth game now.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about your organization, the Sports Bra Project. So tell us what it's all about, what your goals and missions are there, and we'll get into it.
At its simplest, the Sports Bra Project gives new sports bras to organizations working in areas where that's a barrier to participation, or that can be a barrier to participation. We know that girls and women face multiple barriers. They're usually cultural, logistic, or economic. They look different in different places. New York City looks different than rural Montana, looks different than India, looks different than Uganda. But most of the barriers fall into those three areas. So at our base, we find organizations working in those areas with strong ties to the communities, which is important to us. We don't want to come in and change what they're doing. We want to support what they're doing with a piece of equipment that's often overlooked.
Yeah.
So that's the short side of it.
Sure. Well, and we, you and I have talked before a little bit about the deeper why, right? That there's more to it, that obviously this is about accessibility, because at the base level, what you're talking about, it's true, right? Like losing girls in sport because of not being able to buy a sports bra. I mean, it's a shame, right? But then there's also a bigger conversation that it feels like is really embedded into what you're doing, which is kind of the why. Why is this not a thing that we talk about, right? So I'd love if you could kind of talk a bit about that.
I think the sports bra is such a basic piece of equipment. Just about every woman I know, whether they're an elite athlete or just go for walks, has a sports bra or has a collection of sports bras or wears them as their everyday bra.
Right.
But we know that that's not the case. It's not a piece of equipment. You're expected in a lot of cases to buy your own, or if it's accessible. What we think the root of that is when we look at the decision makers in the sport, and they're all guys. Most of them have never bought a sports bra. So reality check, you don't think about it.
Right.
They might order compression shorts because they're familiar with them. Guys wear them too, but they're not going to wear or order what essentially is a compression top of a sports bra.
Right.
So having women in those leadership roles not only ensures that, white shorts aren't necessarily the norm, or
Mhm.
there's feminine products and med kits and sports bras are ordered, but it also ensures that those needs and experiences are normalized. They're part of every woman's sports experience. And to think of it as an other is just doing a disservice to the girls and women in the game who, this is a norm for them. They're not going to take a field without a sports bra.
Right.
So for us, it's the leadership piece, and that's where the other part of the Sports Bra Project comes in. Is the majority of our bras come from youth or college teams doing sports bra drives. And for
Nice.
us, it's an opportunity for a young athlete or a young assistant coach to take on a leadership role, run a sports bra drive, do it in something that relates to their community. It's allowing them to engage in their community and normalizes the conversation, because it isn't just Sally doing a sports bra drive. It's Sally doing a sports bra drive with the Sports Bra Project. That's a bigger
Yeah.
conversation. So we're giving them a platform to have that awkward conversation.
Yeah.
And when they're mainly coached by men, it's awesome that girls are playing, but the guys aren't going to be comfortable necessarily saying it. And we need to get it normalized for them too, to be able to say, hey, I don't want to talk in details about a sports bra, but we know we need to order them and let us know your sizes, or whatever that casual conversation is. It's not about going to Victoria's Secret. It's about buying a
Right.
piece of equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as you said, like talking about the decision makers in the
Mhm.
room, right? Like, so having a seat at the table, getting diversity in those
Mhm.
decision-making spaces is super important.
Mhm.
We also know, and I'm kind of going to shift into your coaching hat here. Coaching is another space that we're seeing such a growing need for that, right? Because
Mhm.
like you said, yeah, is there a difference when you have a female coach and you're a female? Maybe
Mhm.
you feel more comfortable talking about those
Mhm.
things, but also could we normalize it, right? So there's a lot of those factors of, hey, it'd be great to have more women and minorities in these positions. So
Mhm.
we are seeing that growing need. And I would love
Mhm.
to hear a little bit about your coach experience and sort of your insight into that in terms of what it looks like, when you're sitting around with all the other coaches, what does that table look like? Are we hitting it yet? Are we getting there? Or what do we do?
Wow, there's a lot of layers to that
Yeah.
question. I think the first is, it's been amazing to see the growth in the girls' game and the women particularly.
Yeah.
Going on the field when I was younger, it was, you were playing with the boys because there were girls' teams, and now we're seeing as many girls playing in many states as boys, and in some states more girls playing than boys, because we're not competing with football, yet the
Right.
leadership still looks like the guys.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. Sports is still that male, I don't know. Yeah, it's assumed if you're a guy, you played sports. It's not assumed that if you're a
Right.
woman, you played sports. And I think some of those assumptions come to bear, and it really is a cultural conversation. I think one of the examples that I usually bring up, and I've started addressing it because I finally, as I've gotten older, figured out how to address it, is if you have two coaches on the field and one's a guy, and one's a man and one's a woman, and a player doesn't know their name, they're going to call the guy coach. I often get called miss because they think they're being respectful, just like they do in
Oh,
school. So the kid isn't being disrespectful. They're doing exactly what they would do. All their teachers, for the most part in school, are miss. So
sure.
calling the guy a coach is normal to them, and calling a woman miss is normal. So I've had to start sort of addressing that earlier, not in a negative way, but
No,
really
right.
starting, especially with younger players, really just saying, hey, this is Coach Jimmy. If you forget his name, you can call him Coach. I'm Coach Sarah. If you forget my name, you can call me Coach. And
Yeah,
that's it. I don't tell them, don't call me Miss,
sure.
but at the same time, I think that's really telling of where we are in society, where we expect the leadership in sports to be, is is not there yet. It doesn't match the
Right.
participation.
Yeah.
Um, and you look at the college level, where it's less than 50%, 47, I think is the latest percentage of women coaching across all college divisions, women's teams, which means, 75% of the jobs are going to men, because if 100%, almost 100% are coaching of men's teams are coached by men and
Right.
50% of the women's teams are coached by women, we're looking at 75% of coaches at the collegiate level are men.
Yeah.
Every sport's different. We know there are exceptions, and team sports are different than individual sports. But I think those conversations are really telling of where we are, where we think that leadership is, and what leadership looks like. And I think the piece of the Sports Bra Project that we hope addresses that is, if a young girl or a younger assistant runs a drive, they see themselves in a leadership role of taking charge. They have to tell their friends what they're doing,
Right.
and their friends, follow, or they're watching a friend do that. And I think for us, that's a little piece. We can't solve all of it, but our hope is that that opportunity to take on that leadership role in a really safe environment, because if the
Mhm.
sports bra drive they're running fails, they don't collect bras.
Right.
I mean, that's the biggest
Yeah.
repercussion. It's not exactly going to
Right.
ruin anyone. We'd like them all to collect bras, but at
Yeah,
the same time, it's
for sure.
not. Yeah, it's a low risk.
Yeah.
So we want to provide that opportunity. So hopefully, when those younger athletes get to be in the ages of those positions, um, they're able to expect there, not just see themselves there, but expect to be there and expect their
Yeah.
friends to be in those roles.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too to think about, what the Sports Bra Project does is like it's a way to keep girls in
Mhm,
sport longer, right?
mhm,
And the thing is not everyone's going to go on to be, the pro player
mhm,
or an
mhm.
elite athlete. However,
Yep,
having that love of sport carry through your
mhm,
teenage years might be more influential for when they grow up to be a coach for their kid, right?
yeah,
But if you stopped playing at 10, maybe that passion didn't really get
mhm.
going, right? So I think it's really interesting because that's another way to like, we talk about elite level coaches and stuff like that, but it's also at the youth level. And,
I think it's
having
worse
more,
at the youth level, to be honest.
yeah,
There are fewer women in the room. I was lucky last night. I ran a coaches meeting for the coaches of our club, and it's a town-based program, smaller, and
mhm,
we actually had 5 women in the room. And I'm like, this is really cool. This is the first time we've
yeah,
outnumbered the men, and that doesn't happen. Again,
yeah,
we're coaches, but yeah, it's an interesting conversation on that, and there's not one solution, unfortunately. I
right.
am sort of reassured a little bit when I watch some of the younger coaching generations, some of them in their 20s and early 30s, and I watch the interaction between the male coaches and the female coaches, and it looks very different from when I was that age. Um, it hasn't quite trickled up to the top,
Sure.
as it were, but at those younger levels, the younger ages, I'm seeing more, not always, but you're seeing more and more healthy interactions and respectful interactions. So on days when you are the only, or I am the only woman in the room, that's kind of reassuring to me. I'm like, okay, I'm the only woman in here, but there's a group coming up
But
behind
yeah,
me that hopefully isn't going to be the only one in here, and
yeah,
we're going to make sure we get them in that position.
yeah, no, and I mean, and the commentary on the coach and miss, I never really even thought of that. And it's
Mm,
funny because I coach my son's soccer team, when we're all out there coaches, we do a little combine now at third grade. Can't believe it. But like, there were a few other women there, but then when we went to go pick teams, all the boys coaches, it was all
mhm,
men, and I was the only female there. So it's funny though, because even my son, he like makes sure to call me coach on the field, not mom,
oh,
because he's like, no, that's what I call my coaches, and so
yep,
I do see it though, even with like these young boys that I'm
mhm,
teaching or coaching, just their awareness and
mhm,
kind of all of that. Everyone can play sports. Like they're just
mhm,
at, I think we do have generations coming up that maybe are a little more open to those
mhm,
inclusive spaces and understanding like no thought was given that they have
mhm,
a woman as a coach, right? Like that wasn't a thing. So yeah, there definitely is progress that's happening. But again, yeah, when it's only 25% of our collegiate, that's crazy.
it's insane, and we're 50 years after Title IX, and the participation numbers have skyrocketed, which is
Right.
amazing and awesome to see, but that leadership hasn't changed, and I think, the sports bra and being not ordered as a piece of equipment is just a symptom.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a symptom of a bigger question and a bigger conversation. And so while we want to meet an immediate need, we also want that conversation to be furthered and to use it as the project as a tool to have those conversations that normalize girls and women in sport, and to have that leadership opportunity, and using it also as a platform to amplify the voices of some of the organizations we work with. We work with some amazing organizations that are tackling whatever is most concerning or prevalent in that the community that they're in. So we work with a group in Haiti, called Goals Haiti. They're an amazing organization. Their ED is based out of Washington State, and she looks like me. So initially, I'll be honest, I was a little concerned. I'm like, okay, so what's this going to look like on the ground in Haiti? And I
Sure.
asked her who's going to distribute the bras, and her response was, we have a woman who came through our program, went to school, came back, and we hired her. And I'm like, that's exactly what we want.
Yeah.
She is the absolute perfect. So off the bras have gone pretty much annually now, because they are in touch with their community and they're promoting women within those leadership roles in that community. And all we're doing is supporting it,
Yeah.
and letting them know that there are people out there, if they don't feel their community support, they have another community, a global community that wants them to play and wants them to have that opportunity. And you mentioned levels of play. I think that's the unique thing about the sports bra, is that whatever your age, after you get to about 11 or 12, whatever your level of play and whatever your sport, the sports bra is one of those things that's a universal need.
Right.
It seems so obvious once you say it, but it took us a while to get there too. And we have a group we work with in Colorado. It's called what is it, Running Start, and they work with women over 30 who have never done sports, and they pair them with a runner. So for me, I love that group. It's a tiny organization. It's only about 30 athletes a year, but it's 30 women who've never played in sports, and you're getting populations that, whether for economic reasons or cultural reasons, didn't have access as kids, and
Right.
now they're having time to get back into it, and we love that. For us, it's, that conversation is just as important, and they tend to be, older women, slightly larger chested, but getting them into even just running or walking, we're 100% behind that. We think that's
Right.
amazing. And that's going to help that next generation. Now they can talk to their daughters or their nieces about a sports bra,
Yeah.
or know how to go shopping for one.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you mentioned about the group in Haiti, I think it's so interesting, because what you're defining is the way in which we can help or aid that progress without being the person who walks in and says, I'm here to fix it, right?
Yeah, that white savior thing,
Yes.
we absolutely want to avoid it.
Yeah.
We all have a face that everybody makes assumptions about, and you can make whatever assumptions you want about me, and I'll guarantee you some of them will be right and some of them will be wrong.
Sure.
But we really look for organizations that are in tune with their community. They know it better than we ever could, and I love to learn from them. One of the first groups we gave to was a group in Namibia, and I think of a bra as support. I'm not Dolly Parton. I think of a bra as just purely, it's support, it's function, it's,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm very boring. I like the grays and blacks, old school.
Yeah.
I think it's coolish colors, but I'm boring. But I just think of it as, support. It's just functional. And the woman we gave them to, who runs the girls or the Namibian Football Association women's desk, she said that it's shameful. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, what do you mean it's shameful? She's like, well, if a woman is bouncing, she's promiscuous, and that's shameful to her and her family. Totally mind blown. And I'm like, this is where that cultural thing is. I'm learning from every group we give to, whether it's a wrestling group and I'm learning what has to go under a singlet, or whether it's
Sure.
a group in Namibia where I'm like, shameful? That wasn't even on my radar.
Right.
I'm thinking it was purely comfort. So for me, it's been fascinating to learn both the differences, but also the similarities in groups, and the number of times you hear, I don't know if you've heard this, but, and then the next day I hear the same story from someone, completely different community.
Right.
So the universal need of at levels, at different levels and in different sports and at different ages is, I think, what makes it unique.
Well, and yeah, it is. And it's so interesting to think about those factors and how, like culturally and where you live, all of that changes kind of not only what you have access to, but then, yes, also the stigma or the, the belief system around it. There's a lot of layers to it. So, I also loved that when we last talked, we were talking about when we're talking a little bit about the seat at the table kind of thing, that the decision makers, right, all look the same. And it was interesting to me, because what you said, you were like, no fault to them that they don't think of this, because they don't use it, right? And so it is that concept of you don't know what you don't know, or you don't think about the things that don't affect you personally. So yet another reason for having that decision-making table look different and have more diversity. And I think what you guys are doing is sort of like, now, as much as each interaction you're having with different cultures and things, like now you're learning more. Like it's just really cool to think about the idea of what can we learn when we start to listen and open up those spaces. And I think it helps to be more forward thinking, right, versus reactive, because I feel like right now we're almost digging out of the things that like sport was created and those things were never thought of. Now we have to look at all the things that were never thought of, right?
And and it's easy to look with them if you start including people in those conversations. And I think we get stuck in thinking about it as somebody else's problem. We like to give to those exotic locations.
Right.
65% of our bras went to US-based organizations last year. And we could have given all of our bras to US-based organizations.
Right.
There's so many communities here. In fact, in some places, I think in the US, we have less representation in some spaces than in some other countries. And that representation, when your leadership doesn't look like your membership, that's a problem. And that's what creates problems. If we have, it's important, and then it doesn't become an issue. A sports bra shouldn't be a long topic of conversation, to be honest, just like feminine products in your med kits. Oh, yep, we've got to make sure we're stocked with the Band-Aids and the feminine products. It's not a big issue. It just is one thing that, as you said, they don't always think about it, but they need to think about it. When I've coached men, there's certain things that I think about a little more than when I coach women.
Right.
And I just expect to do that as a coach, that you adjust certain things, and you have to consider certain things. And as a, in a coaching role or a leadership role, you need to be aware of them. And if you're not aware of them, you need to have part of your community that is and can help you and educate you on it. And it's not every woman's job to educate every guy. I would like to spend my time thinking about coaching, not arguing that we should put feminine products in our med kits or that we should order sports bras. I'm like, that is not what I went into my career to talk about. I never thought I'd be talking about sports bras. As I said, it was just a piece of equipment and you wore it. But when we're spending so much time and expecting women to educate every man on it, some of it's got to be on them.
Right.
I got to be honest. I'm like, I'm not going to spend my time, if I'm supposed to be coaching a team and I'm wasting half my time educating you on something you should know, well, then maybe you shouldn't be in that role.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and especially because when you're thinking of it, like I'm working for a new league and being a director of culture and education, I look at it as I'm serving the players, I'm serving the coaches, I'm serving the staffs of each of these teams. Like that is my job, is to make sure that everybody's in a space that they feel good, that they are taken care of, and that they are given opportunities to grow. But the thing of it is like, you need to be given that space, and you need people to be open to that. And you have to be aware of the people you're serving. And if you're just doing whatever you've always done and not looking at the group in front of you, and I mean, and that comes into coaching too, right? Like every kid you coach is going to be different. Every person that comes across, every year you have a different team, it's going to look different. And getting into that a little bit, you've done a lot with coach education as well. So I would love to hear your thoughts a little bit on kind of, because that's a big one for us. We really want our coaches, even though we're at a pro level, to continue growing their education and learning. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your experiences in that space of coach education or director of coaches. I know you've done quite a few jobs in that way. So I'd love to hear your experiences there, and maybe, what's going great, what we could improve on.
Wow. I think the sports bra and the playing level is very much reflective of what occurs at leadership level. Unfortunately, I'm reassured. I don't want to be all negative. I'm reassured that there are some changes happening. I'm sad that they're a little too late for my generation.
Right.
I don't want to go back and start again at some levels. And I know I'm not the only woman who feels that way. So I'm excited that they're there. But my experiences in coaching education were being the only woman in the room. When I was taking youth national course in New York, I don't remember, maybe 10 years ago, I was the only woman. I'm like, we're in New York and we're talking about a youth game where all the women get pushed before they're allowed to take the higher levels.
Sure.
And I'm the only woman in the room. The guy, thankfully, there are some amazing was an amazing instructor who kind of saved the course for me, but I almost walked out I didn't almost walk out. I thought about just being pissed and walking
Yeah.
out. The first instructor who was introducing the course started by saying that he thought maybe, he wanted to make a joke, but it wasn't funny. He thought maybe only women should be coaching the younger ages because they're good with kids. And I kind of went, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there looking at the room of men going,
take a deep
do
breath.
I raise my flag and say, what the now and the first day and ruin like
Absolutely.
any chance of getting through? Or do I just sit here quietly and talk to the instructor who I know is a good guy and gets it? And so thankfully, and I don't know if he probably will not remember it, but Sam Snow was the instructor who saved it for me. Otherwise, had he not been there, I would have been very different experience, and I would have either walked out or poked the bear a little bit more than I probably should have. But that's not that long ago. And that was a youth license course. And I was like, this is where we put the women. And if we're good at it, why am I the only woman in the room? And it's funny because I don't have kids. I borrow them and I return them. I love them, but I want to give them back.
Love it.
But half the guys in the room had kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so are they not better with kids than, the woman in the back who, just borrows them and is the spoiling aunt who gives them the loud toys? And makes my sister mad. But so I think there have been positive experiences within it. I like to think it is getting better. And in talking with friends who are part of that younger generation, where they get to be in coaching courses of all women, which we could have a conversation as to whether we should or shouldn't do that. But I think at this point, we need it. I would like to say I want them all co-ed, but in reality, we're not there yet. And if those are the things that we're facing in co-ed environments, then forget it. It's got to be a female-only environment to some degree until we get to a point where those women are now those instructors. And now it can be, I'm tired of being patient, though. I'll be honest.
No, I hear you on that because, it was, I believe, Candace Fabry, she posted about her group that was all women getting licenses. I was like, that's awesome. But I'm like, should I be like so remarkably excited that this should not be groundbreaking? But it is. In 2023, we're still like, oh my gosh, look at all those women becoming A licensed coach or B licensed coach, or whatever. But it shouldn't be that, right? Like, it's crazy.
Hope it wasn't.
It still is.
You hope it wasn't.
Yeah.
But then again, we look at the World Cup stage and we see where that was and what's the fallout's been of having an all male leadership and a different cultural expectation of women. And, it's easy to get frustrated, but it's also, that's when I turn to like Candace and others. And I'm like, okay, there is hope. There are still things to do, but we are getting to a point where hopefully those in their 30s or mid-careers are going to be the ones in those leadership roles and things will look different for that next generation. And I don't know, that's my positive side. On the other side, I've been told that I would just wait until those age out and you're excusing all the older men for old traditional values that are cultural that's maybe not up to today's norm. And I'm like, well, those are my age now. I'm not excusing my age people anymore. I'm like, I'm not the 20-year-old excusing the 50-year-old. I am the 50-year-old, and I'm done excusing the other guys who are 50. So, the Sports Bra Project, we use it as a way to have those conversations. Hopefully it's a non-threatening way. We can have a little bit of fun with it. Our group in Australia has a lot of fun with it. They're allowed to do things that I can't do, like have titillating beverages, uplifting beverages and booby prizes. I would love to run one of those drives. I would love to run one of those events in the US. I don't know if that would fly in most groups, especially youth soccer culture, but we have to make it part of a normal conversation where there's no stigma around it. It's a sports bra. Okay.
Right.
It's not a big thing, but that cultural shift starts at that leadership level. And that leadership has to be either comfortable in what they don't know and learning it, or they have to bring it, and they have to bring in people. I guess it's twofold: comfortable in what they don't know and learning about it, like we are. I learn tons from people we work with, and also bringing in people who don't look like your traditional leader. Like if you search that AI chat stuff now and you put in leader, you're going to get a white dude. Okay, that's great. Some white guy, I'm not going to say that's not a group that should be represented. They should absolutely be there, but they should not be the only ones there.
Right. I talked to
I just stumbled over that answer. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I just talked to Cage Leitner, who I'm sure you know, do you know? Yeah. Just last month. And what he said I thought was so great when he's talking about accessibility. He's like, look around and see who's missing. Like if you're having a meeting, like look who's not there. Don't look at who you're seeing or whatever. Like look for the absences. Where are you not seeing people? And I think that's like what you're saying is we not only need to be getting those people in the room, but those who already exist in the room also need to be like broadening. They need to be opening up and listening and learning. And it's really important that those things happen. And you're right. I get really positive when I see people in like the women's soccer world that are guns blazing, ready to change it. And it makes you hopeful because they will go in those rooms and they will speak up and not just be in the room, but make sure they're heard. And that's really great to see because I think there are quite a few women that, you know, just pop immediately into my head of really being those difference makers. And it's refreshing to see. And I hope highlighting people like yourself inspires other young women to be those difference makers, to start the conversation, to do the work, right? I think sometimes they, like you said, even as a coach, you need to see someone who looks like you. The same thing, like you said, with leadership, right? That you can go out and do it and make the difference. You can be the person who starts it. And I think that's really cool. And like you said, with the sports bra drives, like what a small, easy way to start. And yet all of a sudden, like you see yourself grabbing a mission and speaking up on it and being confident with it. I think that's really great for young women.
Yeah, and that's the fun part. I love seeing what they come up with for drives that I would never have thought of, which is obviously a huge part of our project. But one thing I would say is also we can't let the guys off the hook. This isn't just a women's thing. This is a coaches and sports thing. If you're in sports, you got to understand it. If you're a man ordering equipment, as in tune as you are with what the men's needs are, you need to learn what the women's needs are. I don't want, it shouldn't be just the women's sphere and the men's sphere like it used to be. If we're going to really have these integrated, and I'm expected to know how to work with girls and boys or men and women, well, the guys need to understand that too. So while I do put it on the women and we had to do the major lift, I guess my challenge out to the guys is we had our first MLS team do a drive. The San Jose Quakes did a drive. And I was thrilled. I'm like, we want to see the guys groups
That's great.
talking about it. Yes, it was their mainly women's staff in this community engagement part that was running it, but it was still part of a men's team and having a drive. And I think that was, for me, I love seeing that. We've had Forward Madison did a drive too. It's a men's team as well. We really like seeing that. Some of the colleges, their SAC committees get involved. So the men's teams are involved as well. So this isn't just a women's thing. It's not a women's issue. This is a sports thing. And we want sports to represent.
Yeah, no, and I'm thinking of it like how you're saying it's twofold, like getting women or minorities or whoever, just whatever we're talking about the issue, getting someone that knows it and lives it in their experience to be there. But then also that there's the second part, that learning and growth. I know with our ops manual, like I went through that, and granted, partially because I'm the cultural person for our team. So I'm making sure all the stuff that I want in there is in there, that it's a norm. It's not, oh, this is what we believe in, but no, we make rules about what we believe. Like they have to happen, right? And again, feminine products have to be in the locker room, have to be in the kit. Like those types of things are now just commonplace. But what's great is then when I give it back to my team, I can say, okay, see what I added, because yes, I can always be the person who's proofreading and adding, or you can look at it and go, oh, okay, so I need to always include that, right? So it's really great. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I'm surrounded by a team who there's women and there's men, but everybody's on board for what's right by women, because that's the league that we're serving. So before we wrap up, I would love to hear anything new on the horizon for Sports Bra Project, anything coming up, or even just sort of your hopes for the future in general in the soccer world.
In the soccer world, I would like to see leadership look like membership, and that I think is the first step. We can talk. I think that's the first step for me. Is there's many pieces, but I would like to see that happen more. And maybe that, culture drives sport and sport drives culture, does that have
Yep.
an impact on who we expect as, in coaching, it's mainly men. In teaching, we see a lot more women. When does that shift? It goes kind of both ways there. So I want to see leadership looking like it's membership, and I want membership to be inclusive of everyone. I really believe there's a place in sports for everyone, whatever the level. It may not be on the same team. You're not putting
Right.
me on a national team, but is there a place? Is there a women's older team? Is there a rec level team? The club I work with now, we have high school limited distance travel. That's awesome to me.
Oh,
These
that's
kids
cool.
have no aspirations of playing in college, yet, which is what we tend to think of in the youth game, but
Yeah.
they just want to play and they're with their friends. And I won't say it's high level soccer, but it's a place for them. And to me, that's really important, from the elite level to the lower level recreation. Sports is something that should include everyone, and its leadership should also look like that. For the Sports Bar Project, we've got a couple cool things coming up. I just got back from presenting at the Equality Summit around the World Cup, which was amazing. When you walk in the room and Billie Jean King is the first person you see, it's kind of like,
Oh my gosh.
okay, I'm totally
I saw your
fangirling
picture
now.
with her and I was like, oh my gosh.
Made my day. I'm not sure what was the highlight, the final or that.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a toss-up.
Right.
We have a drive coming up with the OL Reign. It'll be our fourth year working with them.
Nice.
So we'll be doing that on October 1st. And then we're going to be doing a drive. I think it'll be our second with them with the San Diego Wave,
Awesome.
also in October. So we have some cool drives coming up. Some of the distributions we've started for the US based programs. We've started focusing on groups that we can come back to every year, not as one-offs, but ones that are really sustainable within their community. So
Yeah.
we're looking to ship some stuff out very soon, to some of the groups that are starting up this fall, in those communities, particularly in the U.S. As I said, 65% of our bras last year went within the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will make sure that when we share when this goes live, we'll share all of your stuff, links to the Sports Bra Project, so that people can support in all different ways. Cause I'm sure they could donate, or if they're not in those areas to do those drives, or they could even hold a drive in their own town. So hopefully we'll inspire some people to, get involved a little bit. And, thank you
We
so
can do
much.
virtual drives. We can do virtual drives too, which is awesome. That came out of the pandemic is if you want to do a fundraising drive without touching any money, there's a way we can set up a site for you and have it go through, and they'll get a tax receipt from us. So we can do in-person drives, virtual drives. You can just straight up donate, mail us bras, all of the above. There's a lot of ways to get involved.
Awesome. So we will definitely be pushing that out so that we can maybe get some more bras sent your way or whatever. But thank you so much for your time today. It's been so great talking to you. Such a great conversation and needed.
Well, thank you for being open to the conversation and pushing opportunities for women in the space.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you all for tuning in. What an awesome conversation we just had with Sarah. I hope you all will go check out the Sports Bra Project and get involved in any way you can. If you know somebody, or you are somebody working to make change in the women's game, be sure to tag us on social media so we can see your culture in action. And until next time, be bold, go out and make a difference.